What does it mean to truly value something? How often do we mistake a price for worth, and in doing so, miss the wisdom life tries to offer us? This ancient tale from a past life of the Buddha may hold an answer, one that echoes the importance of true discernment over superficial judgment. Long ago, in a city buzzing with merchants, the aroma of fresh grain and the wisdom of both young and old, a story unfolded that taught the townspeople a lesson still relevant to us today. It all began with a humble elder monk named Udayi, living in the community at Jetavana. He was known to be sincere, but also a bit lacking in insight. In time, the monks began to call him Udayi, the dullard, a nickname he earned for his repeated misunderstandings. Udayi had recently taken up the responsibility of distributing rice to the monks after a dispute over receiving what he believed to be poor-quality portions. It had been Daba, a monk skilled in judging and sharing the rice fairly, who originally did the task. Yet, when Udayi voiced his displeasure, the others, somewhat out of exasperation, handed the job over to him. But the role was far from simple. To distribute rice justly required a keen sense of perception, an understanding of the monks' needs, their seniority, and what fairness meant for the community. Udayi, however, believed he could simply mark the ground to organize the distribution. He drew lines, plotted positions, but the following day, the monks seemed to shift. The marks no longer matched, and neither did the quantities. The elder monk held on to his misguided belief in his markings, stubbornly refusing to adapt, while the other monks grew increasingly frustrated. Soon, the novices and younger monks had enough. They pushed Udayi aside, and chaos reigned in the usually calm dining hall. Voices rose, echoing through Jetavana, until even the Buddha himself took note and approached to inquire what was causing such unrest. Upon hearing the tale, the Buddha, calm as ever, nodded knowingly. This, he said, was not the first time Udayi's lack of discernment had brought confusion. And with that, he began to share a story from a time long past, a story of value, perception, and wisdom. Long ago, in the grand city of Benares, there lived a king who prided himself on his wealth and power. He had at his service a wise valuer, a man with the rare ability to see the true worth of all things, be it a majestic elephant, a swift horse, or a delicate piece of jewelry. The valuer's decisions were trusted by the people, for he was fair and just, qualities that come not from a desire for wealth, but from a genuine understanding of value. Yet the king, ever wary of his treasures dwindling, began to suspect that his wise valuer might be overestimating the worth of the goods. He feared that, in giving fair prices, his wealth would slip through his fingers like grains of sand. One day, the king spotted a foolish but eager man loitering in his courtyard, someone with little knowledge but a loud voice. The king, deciding to save his wealth, dismissed the wise valuer and appointed this new man in his place. Not long after, a merchant arrived at the palace gates with a splendid herd of 500 horses. Their coats shone under the sun, and their eyes were sharp with spirit. The new valuer, however, had no knowledge of horses, nor did he care to learn. He examined the herd, scratching his head, and declared that the entire lot was worth no more than a single measure of rice. The merchant, stunned by the absurdity, was at a loss. How could 500 magnificent creatures be valued so poorly? In his despair, he sought the advice of the former valuer, the wise man who had always been just. This wise man was none other than the Bodhisattva, the Buddha in a past life. And he listened patiently to the merchant's plight. The Bodhisattva, seeing the opportunity to reveal the folly of misplaced trust, advised the merchant to return to the palace and offer a bribe to the new valuer, urging him to state, in the presence of the king, the value of that same measure of rice. The merchant did as he was told. Before the king and his court, he approached the new valuer, and after a polite bow, posed the question. "Sir, if I may, what is the worth of a measure of rice?" The valuer, puffing up with misplaced confidence, declared loudly, "The measure of rice is worth the entire city of Benares and all the land surrounding it." A stunned silence fell over the court, followed by ripples of laughter. The king, his face reddening with embarrassment, realized the depth of his folly. The valuer he had chosen, in his ignorance, had reduced the worth of fine horses to nearly nothing, while inflating the value of a simple measure of rice beyond imagination. The Bodhisattva's wisdom echoed in a simple stanza that passed through the murmuring court. "A measure of rice, worth all Benares and more, yet 500 horses priced at the same. Such is the folly of misplaced trust." The king had no choice but to dismiss the foolish valuer and reinstate the wise Bodhisattva. The wise valuer's insight and fairness once again brought order and justice to Benares, and the city thrived in peace. The Buddha finished the story, his voice calm and steady, as he looked around at the monks gathered before him. He spoke of the importance of discernment, of understanding true worth, whether it be rice, horses, or even the role of distributing food within a community. To assign value, one must first have the wisdom to see beyond appearances, a lesson Udayi, both then and now, struggled to understand. And so, what does it mean to truly value something? True value, the story suggests, lies not in the markings on the ground or the loud proclamations of the uninformed, but in the quiet wisdom that comes from understanding. The price of a measure of rice, or the worth of 500 horses, or even the fairness of a scoop of rice, is not fixed by bold claims, but by the insight that discerns what is just and fitting. As the monks departed, each reflected on the wisdom imparted by the Buddha. Udayi, though chastened, began to understand that value, whether of rice or responsibility, could not be measured by marks or ego, but only through the quiet lens of true discernment. And just like that, the tale that began with confusion over a simple measure of rice ended with the understanding of its real worth, a lesson for all who sought wisdom, then and now.